All right, boom, here we go. There goes the dynamite. Is that a good enough catchphrase for you, Travis Email?
I mean, it's good enough for today, but please don't start every episode with "Boom goes the dynamite." The mental image I'm getting with that is
I don't even know where that came from. I just decided out of nowhere, boom, there goes the dynamite. Anyway, I mean, Travis can't see it, but if you're looking at this, you can see that we're going to be talking about Locke and Key today. I don't know if we've talked about it on this show, but you and I have both discussed Locke and Key, in my opinion, is easily in the top 10 best comics of the last 15 years at least.
Yeah.
Maybe north of that.
Because it started, when
2008.
2008.
But I'm not even talking about in terms of like how long the book's been out. I'm talking about in terms of the number of books that have been out.
Yeah.
Over the years. Like, I'm not saying, we've said this before, I'm not saying that all new comics suck or anything like that. I'm just saying this is an exceptional book that I am not a horror fan. I read comics, but I do not have any interest in horror. This is a book that I will give to a person who doesn't like horror and isn't interested in reading comic books. Mm-hmm. You can pretty much give Locke and Key to anybody. It is a fantastic book. Well, any adult. But it is fantastic.
And that's what I've been recommending to people if they're looking for something different to read that's not a superhero book. Mm-hmm. I've been turning people towards Locke and Key. And I'm a big fan of Joe Hill. He's been doing novels, and he also has done comics, and he's still doing comics. DC has like a special line that he's been releasing. One of the titles that's actually pretty good is called Basket Full of Heads. As weird as that title sounds, it's a really good book, which I would recommend that one to pick up.
Okay, is he curating it or is he writing it?
Both. Well, he's not. Okay. I don't think he's writing all the ones. The one I'm familiar with that he is writing is Basket Full of Heads. Okay,
I'm just curious because one issue I do have with Joe Hill is after the success of Locke and Key, he did a bunch of books that he curated but didn't write, like The Cape.
Oh, are you talking about the TV show, or is this something different?
No, I'm talking about like comics.
All right, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he didn't write any of them, but like there was a few books where it said like Joe Hill's whatever, and then it was like he didn't write it, like he just like curated it or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not here to talk bad about Joe Hill. Obviously, I like his work. Gabriel Rodriguez, is like one of the most underappreciated artists in the industry right now. Like, he doesn't get a lot of work for a dude who's as good as he is. You know, now granted, obviously he falls in a category of like disciples of Art Adams, like Nick Bradshaw, but he is a fantastic penciler, and it's just weird, like that. The only things I've seen from him is Locke and Key, including a couple of Locke and Key one shots, and then he did a run on. Was it Avengers?
That I'm not sure.
Or maybe it was Superman. I think he and Joe Hill did something together in like a mainstream universe, but I don't even remember what it was, you know. But just an amazing book. So I believe you were like me when the trailer came out for the Locke and Key Netflix series. Like, I was so hyped for it. I was so excited.
I kept telling people, I was like, watch out. It's like, if you're going to be looking for a good show, or, you know, this should be the one right here.
Mm-hmm. And I was pretty disappointed.
Yeah. I watched it before you did.
Yeah, you did.
I called you to ask if you've seen it, and I think I told you, it's like, don't even bother. And what was funny is I did feel like a crazy person for a while, because I felt like I was the only person who disliked it. Which is okay.
So here's the issue. This is going to be one of those series that people are going to be like, "Oh, you just hate everything," because it's mainly going to be people that never read the book. And look, if you never read the books and you like this show, more power to you. The books are unquestionably better. And I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm not trying to be like, well, the book was better. The book was better. Like, it's that simple.
It's a pretty far departure from the source material. Mm-hmm. And they use some ideas from it, but throw away a lot of the good parts of it. It kind of reminds me, like, when I was saying I was disappointed with this, I'm thinking of another comic book adapted Netflix show, which is Umbrella Academy. And I've read Umbrella Academy, and I saw the whole TV show. I was okay. The book is okay. I wasn't the biggest fan of the book. And when I watched the TV show, I kind of felt the same way. I was like, oh, this is way different than the source material, of course. But it was like, I kind of felt indifferent about the series. I didn't hate it or anything like that. There were things the book did better, and there was things the TV show did better, actually, for that. But, however, when I come to this, I don't have any really good things to take away that I think they did better than the book or vice versa. I
do have one that we'll get into in a bit. I do want to say, if you haven't seen the Locke and Key series, like, we are talking about spoilers here. To me, this series, I'm talking about the Netflix series, not the book, is almost a study in how not to adapt a beloved property. I'm not sure who was involved. I mean, I know Carlton Cuse, one of the Lost producers, was heavily involved. I want to say Damon Lindelof as well, but I might be wrong.
Not sure.
But you should have an affinity for the property that if you're going to adapt something like this. And I think you can look at like the DC movies as to that's a good comparison. So the Marvel movies don't get everything like the comic books. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, none of those characters are really similar except for Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon is the one exception that is similar to how the characters are portrayed in the comics. But you can tell that in every Marvel movie, the people involved actually, maybe not the actors, but the writers, the producers, the directors, actually do care about these properties. And in the DC movies, you get a lot of, like, we don't really care about Superman. Make him kill things. Whatever. Yeah, I know, I'm sure there's plenty of people, whatever. But it's true. You should have an affinity. You should have an actual... You don't have to be as in love with it like you or I do, but you should actually care about doing the job. The Harry Potter series, there are differences between the books and the movies, but you can tell that the people involved took care to make sure that they got the spirit of it right. And in a way, like, this is more comparable for a number of reasons to Harry Potter, because Locke and Key is a specific series of books. It's not an ongoing. Something like Iron Man, you can take and adapt different stories with new movies. This is a self-contained story across 6 different books. And so, unlike something like I said, Iron Man or The Walking Dead, it's not intended to go on forever. And so, you kind of need to get the story right to it. You can make changes, but the story kind of has to be the story in this case. You're adopting something specific. You're not just adopting the adventures of a specific character. Locke and Key is a story, not a character.
Yeah. So my theory for this adaptation, why it came out like this, is because I wonder if the Netflix executives or whoever was involved on the Netflix side of things was afraid of brand confusion with Stranger Things. Because, you have the kids, you have horror elements, and because the book itself is leaning more towards horror, it kind of feels like the TV show leans away from that and tries to go with more sci-fi adventure kind of thing more than, say, a horror.
But you don't really get a lot of that. I mean, you do.
Get a lot of what exactly?
I don't feel like this is that much of a sci-fi adventure. In fact, I just feel like it's the lives of three random kids that don't even seem nearly as disaffected as they should be. Like, you get moments, you know. Now, to be clear, I only watched 3 episodes of it. That's all I could get through. I'm really, the first run, actually, I didn't even make it through the first episode. I think I got, like, you know, almost all the way to the end of the first episode. So I actually had to sit, starting last night, and rewatch 3 episodes.
I was ready to quit after the first one. I watched them all. I was
as well. Well,
I watched them all, and I was just ready to quit because I kind of felt I was going to be negative about it because unless you want to dig right into the first episode.
I will in a second. It was such
a departure for me, and they definitely borrow. It's like they took the first book, dissected it over about 7 of the episodes, inserted different elements from the other books in the middle of that, so they can just get all that out the way. And they even kind of concluded with almost a version of the ending of the book, so they can do whatever they want at this point. So anything for the next season, they have.
I felt more like somebody wrote down the cliff notes, tore it up in little strips, stuck it in a hat, shook it around, and just assembled it in whatever order. Because there's a lot of stuff like weirdly out of order.
Yeah.
So, to me, I told you when we first discussed this privately, you know, a month ago, whatever. I knew something was wrong when I saw the name of the first episode. First episode is technically named after the first volume of Locke and Key. First volume is called, and I'll go to wrong direction. I need to delete those. There we go. Showing the cover of the first volume. First volume is called Welcome to Lovecraft. Lovecraft, obviously, being a reference to H.P. Lovecraft, legendary horror genre writer. In the first episode, they name it Welcome to Matheson. And, okay, I didn't know from, like, looking at that, like, obviously, I didn't think, like, oh, this is going to be bad. But after watching the first episode, I was like, oh, this is bad, and here's why. Welcome to Lovecraft tells you everything you need to know about this book. It is a horror series. By changing the name to Welcome to Matheson, what it's telling you... So, Lovecraft is the name of the town in the series. Mm-hmm. Now it's named Matheson. Now, to be fair, you could argue Lovecraft is a little bit on the nose, you know, for the book.
Yeah.
But, again, it tells you what you're in for immediately. The book is very good at that, and we'll get to the comparison from, like, the opening of each in a second, but it is a horror story, first and foremost.
Yes.
The TV show is very intentionally a mix of Harry Potter and a CW show. That is what they are going for. And the Harry Potter stuff is so on the nose. There's actually a scene in the first episode where Kenzie's in a bathroom. Yeah, it says, like, you're not going to get your letter to Hogwarts. And it's not even that simple. The school looks like Hogwarts. The music in the actual score is clearly trying to portray like a Harry Potter vibe to it. And that is the wrong vibe. Now, don't get me wrong, the book does have elements of whimsy to it when the kids discover the keys and they're doing these things. But it has a specific purpose. It's not all the time. The book is very heavy. The kids are dealing with heavy like really horrific things that happen to them, and the keys are their escape. Like the only time that the book is ever whimsical is when like they're flying with the wings, or using the ghost key or something like that.
Yeah, and they're all dealing with every member of the family is really dealing with that death differently in the books, especially for the first volume.
Mm-hmm.
And in the TV show, you do see it here and there. This version of Nina isn't really affected at all until I want to say the 8th episode is she gets affected and turns into an alcoholic for one episode and is able to conquer her alcoholism by the end of it.
Well, she she gives you the feeling like she's reading a good mystery novel when she's investigating like Rendell's life.
Yeah.
Like she seems vaguely interested, but I'll catch the rest of the show like next week when I have time. Like there's nothing immediate about it. But it goes back to so the opening of Welcome to Lovecraft is the story of Rendell's death. And you see so many things. Now this spoilers if you haven't read the book, but it's not. Well, whatever. It is what it is. I highly recommend you read this book. If it does bother you, I'm just spoiling the opening. So, Sam Lesser shows up with, I don't remember the other guy's name, but he shows up with another psycho buddy. They kill Rendell, and then Sam Lesser goes to chase Tyler, Kinsey, and is it Bode or Bodie? I always thought it was Bode. I always thought it was Bode because, like, the joke was always whack-a-bode. So, like, whack-a-mole, but, like, whack-a-bodie doesn't make any sense. But, all right, we'll just go with Bodie.
Yeah, whack-a-bodie doesn't make a sense, but whack-a-bode really just rolls right up the tongue,
It rhymes, bode, mole, anyway. But
clearly. Bode, mole, same thing.
Anyway. So Sam Lesser goes to chase the other kids. The other guy violently rapes, can't think of the mom's name. Nina. You don't see it on camera, but they make it very clear that is what just happened to her. And then Tyler, so Kinsey goes and hides with Bodie. And they do show that in the TV show. They do show, like, the ramifications of her, like, hiding and, like, how she feels about it. But that's the only thing you see. Like, so, you don't... And you get a little bit of Tyler. So Tyler almost murders Sam Lesser with a brick. He just punches him in the show. But, like, in the comic, he picks up a brick and starts smashing his head in and just completely scars him. He looks horrific. Yeah. And he just stops...
like a monster by the end of it. Like, on the outside.
Yes, very much so. And, Tyler stops just shy of killing him. And then the other guy that was raping Nina gets distracted, and she sticks an axe in his brain. Like, she murders him with an axe. And so, it's not just the death of Rendell that kicks off this story. Like, these characters all have massive things to deal with. Tyler is dealing with the death of his father, the fact that he feels responsible for his father's death. He feels like, he feels guilty about almost killing another human being, even if he's the person that killed his father. Like, he doesn't feel like he's got so much going on top of being a teenager and being in a new school and feeling like a freak, And then, all these kids. Bodhi is the only one that is more or less unaffected because he's so little. And I like the actor that plays Bodhi in the show. Yeah. I think he's one of the very few actors that was cast appropriately. However, he is a little too old to come. Like, they tried to get Bodhi right and like make him have that sense of childlike wonder, but he seems a little too old to me to be, believing in, like at one point, like they curiously gave him Rufus's thing where Rufus would talk with the action figures.
Yeah.
They gave that to Bodhi for some reason,
Yeah, I don't understand why they did that.
Well, the talking through the dolls has a specific role in the show, in the book, as far as Rufus, because Rufus is mentally disabled, and that's how he communicates with the world, is through the action figures. Giving it to Bodhi does nothing, and it's so, like I said, it feels like they took show notes and just stripped it up and just shuffled it around.
Yeah, well, they also added to the beginning of the first episode about introducing a still alive Mark Cho, because in the books, in the current time period, he's dead.
Yeah.
And they show the Mark Cho, or Marcus Cho in the book,
who is very good looking. He's very good looking in this.
Yeah, he's like a really not buff, but he's just a good looking, like a model. Mm-hmm. And they have it does kind of grab you at first, but then I was very confused of why this guy was setting himself on fire. And I'm not going to jump ahead too much, but after he does that, he's only mentioned a few times in passing. They talk about his death in episode 4, and by the end of it, I think 9 or 10, they end up revealing what happened, and I'll get to that. It's just it was just a waste.
By the way, there's a scene where Dodge, she's looking for Marcus Cho, so she walks up to a computer, and they gave her the actress this. I guess they wanted to seem more interesting than just her Googling something, so they're like, eat a cream puff. So she's kind of disgustingly eating, and getting it all over the laptop, and it's distracting. But, and maybe that's on purpose, because, she literally just Googles Mark Cho, New York, and it shows you his address.
Yeah.
And she's just like, okay, now I can go to his house, because I've seen his door, which is the caveat of the Anywhere key in this, is you have to see the door that you're going through. But it was just so funny to me that she was like, oh, you could just Google Mark Cho.
Yeah.
Because, there's only a few Chos in the world.
A lot of things are convenient. Like I pointed out about Nina's alcoholism. She develops it by the end of... I don't know if in this one she was a recovering alcoholic. Mm-hmm. But anyway, she hasn't drank or have really showed that she cares until episode 8.
Yeah, her alcoholism being absent through most of the show is why have it at all? Because the thing is her alcoholism is completely understandable in the book. She has just lived through. I mean, the only thing that could have been worse is if one of the kids died. She has lived through so much just in those opening pages. She becomes an alcoholic. And they mention it briefly when she's talking to Ellie, where she's just like, yeah, I don't drink because I'm an alcoholic. And you're just like, okay. Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Whatever. But, the thing is, the alcoholism also becomes a direct impediment to her relationship with Kinsey. That's a big part of the book, is Kinsey feels like she has no one to turn to, because, Tyler's now dealing with his stuff, and then her mom, she's taking care of her mom, because her mom is just a knockout drunk.
Well, it impacts the kids in different ways, too, in the book. But, yeah, it's just something they touch on and get rid of, and and going back to the first book ends with the big reveal of the whole plot with Sam Lesser and Dodge, or the Echo, or Well Lady, whatever they wanted to call her. And I think it was just the Well Lady for a bit. But they show all this stuff getting out, and that was the entire first book. And they took a piece of that. And for the first episode, that's where the Echo gets out. And you don't have this dramatic reveal. You don't have any... It doesn't feel like it's a payoff or anything for the end of the first episode.
And the only
you're left with is at the end, you see the Echo show up with Sam Lesser, and it's revealed they were working together.
And despite the fact that there's a woman and a well, it never feels appropriately creepy in the show. It just feels like, oh, she just hangs out in a well.
Yeah.
And then she doesn't become threatening at all. There's hints of her being threatening through, when she's in the well in the book. And it's just that Bodhi's so naive that he doesn't pick up on it. You know, but in this, like, up until she strangled... Oh, and also, by the way, the fact that they went like, oh, she immediately goes out and has sex with the guy so she can murder him. Like, just to let you know, like, A, we're edgy, and B, she's evil. Like, okay. I do want to, like, ask you, this really bugged me. So, in the...
We're still referring to the first episode, right?
In this moment, yes. So in the first book, you don't actually get a lot of the keys. They really only deal with the ghost key for the most part.
You have the ghost key. You have the anywhere key.
But the ghost key is most of it.
No, but that's like that's the thing where the object that they mentioned for what Bodhi what the well lady is telling him like that she's looking for.
Uh-huh. No, I got you. But what I'm saying is, so in the books, each key has a specific role in the story. Mm-hmm. You know, in the TV show, it feels more like they're MacGuffins. But in the books, there's a specific role. And so you don't actually, Tyler and Kinsey don't actually find out about the keys until the end of the first book. In this one, in the first episode, they invented a new key, the mirror key. And do they ever
understand that?
Huh?
I don't understand. I don't really understand that key at all.
Right, like what purpose does it serve? Like it doesn't. It lures the mom into the mirror, and that's it. Like it's just like, well, why?
I'm pretty sure that the kids, by the end of the show's 10 episodes, by the 10th episode, when they have spoiler, when they have fake Dodge, who's actually Ellie, they're like, oh, the only way to get rid of Dodge is to throw her in through and use the Omega key and throw her into the portal or whatever. Instead of doing that, why didn't they just use the mirror key, which is like this perfect prison that they could have, and easily bring someone back if they wanted to do something the next season? It's the most it's actually it actually makes the most sense. I know I'm jumping ahead by a lot, and I don't want it to take a lot of time to go through every episode, but that was something just not clearly thought out. I don't know what was happening in the writer's room because there's so many things that are so disjointed.
Well, you had told me that you read that Joe Hill co-wrote the first episode.
First episode. And I don't know if that was like he had an outline, and maybe I don't know what capacity they helped write the first episode.
I was telling you, I suspect, now I could be wrong, but this does happen a lot. I suspect that what probably happened was Joe Hill probably wrote a draft of the script, and it was probably rewritten by whoever wrote that episode. One of the producers is female. I don't know her name, but I know she wrote like a couple of episodes at least. But anyway, sorry.
I just looked up for IMDb about the producers. There's like a sea of executive producers and then 3 main producers.
Okay, one of the main producers is a woman who also wrote multiple episodes.
Okay.
I don't know if she wrote the first one, but I will say I don't want to. We try to be mostly talk about things we like on this show, on this channel rather.
Technically, we are. Again, to say it, the book is fantastic, and it should be. It's a must read.
Yes,
I think.
I do want to say, like you were saying, like you didn't feel like they did anything better. I don't know if I'd say it's better, but I do. I was telling you, I kind of like the third episode on its own. Like, it's not a great adaptation of the book, but I like the third episode. It's darker in a way that mostly makes sense, not totally. There's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of the teen drama stuff that does come in later in the books, but not immediately. I liked the way they portrayed the head key I like that you could walk inside their mindscape, their mind palace.
That was a positive for me. I will say, that's a positive. There's some things they didn't hear that work in the comic, but wouldn't work, I think, in live action, but probably budget-wise. And what they did in the show actually, I think, worked. Mm-hmm. In terms of how they would go into someone's head. It would be something specific would pop up to that character, and they would enter that door.
Right. Like, Bodhi had a chess case, or a treasure case, whatever you would call it. A treasure chest. It would be a treasure chest. I don't know if you noticed on the side, but they had G.I. Joe written on the side, and that kind of made me smile. But it made sense. Well, let me rephrase that. I liked it. It did remove elements of the book immediately, because in the book, like, you can't kill your mental states. So, like, you see Kinsey's fear. In the book, she bottles them up because they're tiny. But you can't murder them. They are anthropomorphic.
There's a metaphor in itself right there, bottling up her fear and sadness.
Right. And it has a very specific story element that I think they were getting to in the show, but in the show she murders her fear, and like with a knife, which is deeply disturbing.
Yes.
Like she doesn't. I don't know. Well, I do want to move on for a second and talk about the casting, because we didn't talk about the casting, and I felt like whoever the correct casting director was for this show should be. A lot of people should have been fired from this show, but the casting was horrific. Rendell looks like a guy who stars in JJ Crew ads. No, really, like.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't seem like somebody's dad.
Everybody's good looking in this.
I disagree with... I don't think Sam Lesser is good looking. He's better looking than he is in the book. In the book, he's clearly meant to be like a grungy outcast kid. And he doesn't come across that way. But
either way, you had mentioned it too. It's like Harry Potter meets Riverdale in a sense. Mm-hmm. And that's what I give. Like, everyone's pretty attractive though, and it's more about like the relationships in here than actual subject matter.
Duncan's played by Iceman.
Yeah.
And I like that actor.
Yeah, and he doesn't really come into play too much. I mean, neither technically does he in the actual book in the first volume.
Right. He comes in more in the further volumes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, do you feel like, aside from Bodhi, any of the characters even have personality?
I think
Tyler doesn't have a personality.
I think Kinsey does, and I think that's part of the good things when they at least do go back to the trauma that she had from when Sam showed up and killed her dad. Mm-hmm. Because in the book, they go back to flashbacks of her holding Bodhi on top of the roof, and they kind of mirrored that shot, but instead of being on a roof, they're hiding underneath a table.
Right.
With a cloth over it. Which is very similar. Again, I think more production things or things that made sense from when they were actually filming it. Mm-hmm. So it looks fun. And I thought even the actress who played Kinsey did a pretty good job on that.
She did. I think it's more of a problem with the writing with her.
Yeah.
Than her, because they give her a lot less to do. Like I said, all the kids seem less affected. They're affected in certain ways. Tyler does deal with his anger issues, but like he becomes a drug addict, and I don't know if he becomes an addict, but he starts doing drugs, and I assumed that was meant to take the place of Nina's alcoholism, but apparently not.
Or do you want to talk about Scott Cavendish getting the James Olsen treatment in terms of he's very handsome?
Not only is he very handsome and race swapped, but what made me laugh is they made him a pleasantly mixed race. You know what I mean? Like he's black, but he's not black. He's light skinned black.
He's British.
You know,
he's British.
And he's
I honestly didn't mean that to come up. What I was talking about is more so is.
But he's a different character.
Scott is kind of like this British punk with shaved head, glasses.
He's very Sex Pistols.
Yeah, and you get this guy, and again, it's another model, like a GQ model type of guy, and I'm supposed to believe this dude is into horror movies and film stuff with his friends.
Oh, let me stop. That bothered the hell out of me. Like, when he's talking to, when he's like, brings up Tom Savini, and he's like, you don't know who Tom Savini is, 15-year-old girl? I'm like, why would she? What are you talking about? And then those friends of his, like so initially when I saw the first episode, I thought like, okay, some producer said, hey, we have a English white guy with a Sex Pistols thing, and then we have a good-looking black guy. Let's just merge them into a light-skinned black British guy, and we'll just eliminate the number of characters. But that's not what they did at all. They actually gave him more friends.
Yeah.
And, like, the friends are annoying. Like, what's with the, like, weird fat guy? And, like,
I don't know,
it feels like diversity hires when you're in that room. It's like, white girl, mixed black guy, black girl with dreads, fat kid.
Well, yeah, and you know, when I was bringing the James Olsen, I'm talking about the Jimmy Olsen Supergirl. When you had like,
I knew what you were talking about.
We've actually talked about it on a podcast before about that casting, where you had this character who's not supposed to be this big love interest. And I'm talking about Supergirl, love interest, and he's cast as this very handsome man, and he's very suave and a completely different character type than what you have. And the same kind of goes for Scott in this.
Yeah, they didn't look like models in the comp. Neither one of them. Jamal was his name, right?
Yeah,
I'm not just being super racist. His name actually was Jamal.
Yeah, Scott in the comic kind of reminded me more of a punk version of like as a Ducky from Pretty in Pink. Is that it?
Yeah, no, that's your reference was right.
The love interest, but he's the very geeky love interest, and that's what it reminded me of. And yes, Scott is in the TV show. He is geeky, but it's not really. It's not believable with me. That's like I don't know who decided. Like, what would kids know? If they were horror fans, what would they know? Oh, they know, blah blah blah. All this.
Well, here's the funny thing, though. That kind of goes against your Stranger Things theory, because the whole Tom Savini thing is just there for them to reference horror movies and be meta. And it's unnecessary. Like, in the books, Kinsey's whole thing is she's a cross-country, she's a track star. And that's how she's literally running from her problems and running from other people. And there's a female character, I don't remember her name. I think she's actually the girl that hits on, that's supposed to be Tyler's girlfriend in the show.
I'm so confused by all that, too.
But she kind of is Kinsey's rival in the book and forces her way, she's like, I'm going to be your friend no matter what. Because Kinsey's literally running from people. And they just got rid of that, and they're just like, okay, so she's a weird kid, so what do weird kids do? They talk about cosplay and make basement horror movies.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and it's so weird, like, they pulled so much from the book, like, literally pulled it out of the story, but then they added in all kinds of crap that doesn't go anywhere and doesn't do anything. Like, the whole horror movie stuff, it's literally just there to be like, we're meta.
Yeah. And they did that pretty much for every episode in terms of, like, picking and choosing what they want from some of the other books. But by the time you actually get to episode 7, where Sam actually finally comes in, Sam ends up dying. They reveal more about Dodge.
Uh-huh.
And that feels like that should have been at least the end of the show. It felt like, just because the way the first book ends, you know, you have all that the big climax, the ending with Sam, and then it shows Dodge in his in the male form show up, and he's infiltrated the school, but with Ellie's help. And I think the show should have just ended, honestly, at 7, but there's like 3 more episodes of this crap. And then the next one's like, all right, well, we're going to deal with alcoholism from one episode. I said that already, but Tyler finds it
on a very special episode of Locke and Key.
Yeah.
Nina discovers alcohol.
Yeah, and then they finish it. Tyler finds the Omega Key. I'm just skipping through a lot.
So there's 2 things that I want to talk about. Well, one is Ellie, and put a pin in that, though. But the other thing is, like, you're talking about how condensed things are, and I agree with you to a degree. I think one of the problems with this show is, in the books, the kids, there's a time limit. Like, after the age of 18, you can't remember anything about the keys. It's part of the magic of the keys. So I think when the producers were making this, I think there was always a thing in mind where they were like, look, these kids are going to age quickly. We can't have this show go on for 7 years.
Yeah.
Can't happen. But what they should have done is do each book as like 6 episodes each.
Yeah, I think I was telling you that. If they did that, like a lot of these shows on Netflix do that. I know Daredevil comes to mind because I remember there was like in the first season there was the deal with the Russian gang for the first half, and then the rest of it was Kingpin.
But if they had done it that way, they could have done it within, I'd say, so like if the first 2 seasons are successful, you do 12 episodes, 6 each. Shoot it all back to back. That's not unusual for these shows. They're usually between 8 and 13 episodes. So if the first 2 seasons are successful, then okay, just go ahead and greenlight 24 episodes, or whatever. Do what you got to do. But I do understand that they did want to condense things. I just think they did it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
But particularly with Bodhi, like Bodhi would have grown up very quickly. He would have been a teenager within a couple years. But yeah, Ellie. So you and I talked earlier today, I was telling you something made me laugh. So Ellie is just used for the name. A lot of these characters are race swapped, but Ellie is the one straight up that is just the only similarity is the name. She's like a confident, good-looking black woman. In the book, the whole point of her character is that she was kind of frumpy. She was a very nice girl, but she was very frumpy. And her mom abuses her, and she has a son that's mentally retarded, that her boyfriend got her pregnant and left her. And it goes more into the story that's not worth getting into at the moment. But they stripped all that, and they just made her confident, good-looking black woman. And then Rufus, her mentally retarded son, who is also, he looks like he's straight out of the comic book, to be fair. Like Rufus, I don't know, he's pretty spot on. He's pretty spot on. But what made me laugh was, I was looking at Ellie and I was just like, alright, so what happens with Rufus? And then Rufus is straight out of the comic book and he's white, and I was like, how is he white? And literally, as I thought that, the character on the show, Rufus, goes, I'm adopted. And I felt like, not like they were reading my mind, but I felt like some producer was probably on stage and was just like, how, he's white, like, like, I get it, he's supposed to be adopted, but what if the audience doesn't get it? So just give him a line where he explains he's adopted, and it made me laugh out loud.
Yeah, but not having, and a lot of these characters like that, by stripping away of what made them great in the book, you have a lot more 2-dimensional kind of characters. Maybe characters will get fleshed out. I know Ellie won't be fleshed out because they got rid of her by the end of the episode. The end of the series. So there's no showing There's no showing any extra background there. They really missed the mark. With the way to nail these characters. The only one, I guess, who's close in terms of being more three-dimensional is Kinsey.
So, do you have any positive things to say about the show, just out of curiosity?
Well, I said it before, and one of the things I said was the way they did the special effects for, or the interpretation of how some of the keys work. Pretty cool.
I like the ghost key effect. I thought that looked really good.
And I will say this, and it's going to sound like I'm being negative, but not, because the production probably didn't have a lot of money, but they definitely, I think, tried to make things work the best way they could. In the comic, Key House is a very it's a bigger character. It is
literally a character in the story, and that is something I forgot to mention. It's not in the show.
If you look at the way it's drawn, this very gothic looking house, compared to what you see in the book, I mean, they could only do so much with what they had. And I think production-wise is great. I guess special effects are pretty good for this kind of Netflix show. Like when they show the shadows with the crown and everything being used are really cool. But I mean, that's really all I have to say that was positive. Oh, I take it back. One character we didn't talk about who also liked in here, besides Kinsey, was the gentleman who played Professor Ridgway.
He was really good.
Yeah, he was good. And spoiler, he's killed off as well. I mean, he's killed off in the book. And even if they adapted this right, I don't think they had to make sense to go through his point of view of things like they did in one issue of the book. But it just kind of... I wish he would have played a little bit more of a role in the TV show, but I can understand why he had to go. But he was good.
The problem with this show, for me, when you sum it right up, is watching this show just makes me want to read the book. It doesn't make me want to keep watching the show. Yeah. And
I'll play devil's advocate here. There's parts in throughout the book that you do have some padding in there that just is more filler than anything. There's one whole book where it's just a backstory where the keys come from, and it's necessary, but I don't even know how you would want to adapt that into the TV show. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yeah, no, I know. You're talking about you're talking about the first half of. You're talking about the first half of Clockworks. Because Clockworks is two parts. It's the part showing like the Civil War era, and then it's showing Rendell's childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't have to. When you're adapting something like this, it doesn't have to get everything right. Well, again, Harry Potter doesn't keep everything in. They cut stuff. They rewrite stuff. They cut corners, but they get the spirit of it right. And the tone and the spirit of Locke and Key, the book, is not present at all in the show. It feels so stripped down that it becomes something else. And if it was something else, it might have been good on its own. I might view it differently. But to take something this good and just water it down to be, and honestly, Stranger Things might be it. It might just be like that. We need the next Stranger Things. So crap this out and hope it picks up.
Yeah, but they still have to make it different because I feel like having talked to publishers before about certain story ideas, they'll turn something down if it's even like probably about 50% similar. They don't want brand.
You're talking about it has to be different from Stranger Things. You're not talking about it has to be different from the comic.
Yeah, I'm talking about in terms of...
Okay, I thought you were saying Locke and Key the show has to be different from Locke and Key the book.
No. I think it was more so because Netflix has... If you think about teen... I guess you can call it teen or kid-related shows. You have Stranger Things, and you have Sabrina... the
Chilling Adventures.
Yeah. And if anything, actually, if I'm compare any that are very kind of similar, Sabrina and Locke and Key are probably the most similar.
Well, to be fair though, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comes from a comic book where they reinvented Sabrina. It was a spin-off of that Archie zombie comic. I can't think of what it's called.
Afterlife with Archie.
That it was a spin-off of that. So, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, a lot of people think like, oh, it's not like the 90s show. Like, no, it's not, but it's also not, they didn't come up with that on their own. Yeah. They based it on a comic book.
Too. But here's the thing, I've never read the comic that this one is based on.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not a big fan of the show, but I liked it. I liked it enough for the first season. I didn't care for the second.
Mm-hmm. I never saw it.
That's because I could take it or leave it. But I thought for what it was okay. It kind of reminded me of Buffy the Vampire Slayer at first. But in terms of comparing anything,
except they're pro Satan and Sabrina. Except they're pro Satan and Sabrina.
Yeah.
They're pro Hellmouth.
But I think they wanted to make sure it was his own thing,
but that's also. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying because of the magic element, they were like, well, let's lean more towards that instead of leaning more into the horror aspect of it.
But you bring up Sabrina, and that makes it more disappointing because clearly they have producers at Netflix who understand how to make a horror show. So why? I mean.
But they don't want another horror show.
Because Sabrina is Riverdale meets Tom Savini. Like...
Who?
You. Anyway. I didn't watch it, but you sent me the 2011 pilot for Locke and Key. Originally, they pitched it... And this was a bizarre choice, but they pitched it to Fox almost 10 years ago, and they didn't get past the pilot. I started to watch it, and it opens with someone singing, and I was like, nope. I turned it off.
I didn't get that far. And I don't feel too fair talking about it or trying to compare it, but I do want to actually watch it and check it out and see how close. I think, obviously, there's a reason it wasn't picked up.
It not necessarily. Plenty of great shows got turned down by other networks and then get picked up somewhere else. I'm not saying that it's good. I don't know. Like I said, somebody's singing literally in the opening, and it's not like a theme. It's literally like a character singing about the keys, and I was like, no. Now, I might try to watch it later, but like I said, like this just makes me want to read the books, and that's probably what I'm going to do tonight is read one of the books.
Yeah. If you have, like I've been saying on a lot of these videos, try and check it out by your store. If you, for some reason, are unsure about the book, if you have Kindle Unlimited, and I hate recommending this, but they do have the first volume available for you to read. But if you like it enough, I hands down recommend you actually buy them. They even have really nice hardcover, like omnibuses of it, that look incredible. If you're a hardcover fan, there's some great books out there for it.
Look, I'll tell you this. I do read digital comics. I love comic books. I love comic book stores. I am always pro buying from a comic book store. That said, sometimes I buy things that I don't know much about for cheap, either on a service like Kindle or Comixology or through Amazon, and then if I like it, I buy more from the store. There's nothing wrong with that. Like if you're curious and you're stuck at home and you just want to read, the first volume. I couldn't recommend that book enough.
Yeah.
I can't. And again, I'm going to say it again. I am not a horror fan. The reason I haven't seen, I've heard good things about Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I have a lot of friends who love that show. I have no interest in it. I don't like horror. It does not interest me. This is a horror book. And it is horrific. A lot of characters die in really horrible ways.
Yeah.
And believe me, the fact that the art is cartoony to a degree doesn't make it less horrific.
Yeah. Also, just a side note, and unintentionally, I had this near me because I was rereading it the other day. This is one of this kind of a spin-off book. Is the Small World?
It's
book.
one of the one shots.
Yeah, and there's another one shot that they have as well.
Dog Days. It's called Dog Days.
But no, there's another one besides that.
Oh, okay.
It's another hardcover. Which this is actually a really fun, incredible story. Talking about Rendell Locke and his family.
Okay.
And it's very interesting. I'm not gonna actually. This one, I don't know if they would ever try to adapt something from that, but yeah, these little side stories are really fun too. And still, Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez, and his art is just incredible. I don't want to throw it up on here because I would have sent you it if I would have thought about it. But there's an incredible 2-page spread that's so detailed you can't help but just stop and look at every little detail that was drawn into this book.
I want to conclude by saying, apparently, Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez are working. I don't know if it's a one shot or if it's going to be a mini series, but DC is co-producing it with IDW because it's titled Sandman Presents because DC's been doing this Sandman Presents Locke and Key, so it looks like a crossover between elements of the Sandman universe that Neil Gaiman created and Locke and Key, which could be cool.
Getting money for that.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be in October 2020. Who knows with the current circumstances if that's going to hold up.
I have a little bit of info in terms of DC. A lot of certain DC parts of DC, they're still producing content.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying who knows if it gets pushed back.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to push back necessarily.
I hope it doesn't. I want to read it. I enjoyed Dog Days for what it was.
Cut? I have a feeling Marvel and DC are probably going to cut a few small miniseries, wherever the miniseries they had, or some ones that were selling well, they might cut from talking to a few people, but that's not...
Yeah.
That's not rumors.
No, I mean, there's no point in speculating on that, because that has an unfortunate snowball effect. But
that's rumors, though. Those rumors.
Right. But... I'm saying even rumors, there's no point in talking about it. But I will say Locke and Key is one of the best sellers that IDW's ever had. I mean, there was, I worked in the comic book store. I worked at BSI Comics for years, and there was a period of 6 months randomly. It was it was around 2013 when the last book came out. There was 6 months where we couldn't keep them on shelves. Just randomly, all of a sudden there was an explosion of people just buying it constantly, and then it kind of went away. It was a very weird moment in time, but
kind of ebb and flow type of thing, huh?
No, because it sold fine prior to that, and it sells fine now. But there was just out of nowhere a burst of people. I don't know if maybe it was because of the pilot. Maybe people heard about it. Were let's check this out. But there was a weird 3 to 6 month period where just people were coming in and they would just, that's all they wanted. They were just there do y'all have volume 1 of Locke and Key or whatever? And it was just oh wow, But so what I'm saying is this has a good chance of coming out regardless of whatever happens with the comic book industry because they know it'll sell.
Yeah. Season 2, by the way, did get renewed. I don't know when exactly that's coming out, but it did get renewed. Because probably production might have got pushed back because of everything that's going on.
I won't see it.
Oh, neither will I. But that's right, and that's where I'll leave my hate at, my dislike for that show. It's just of what I've seen. I'm not gonna once the other one comes out, I don't care to see it anymore.
Well, I think that'll do it for this. The next thing we talk about will probably be more Spider-Man movies, so it'll actually be something we like.
Yeah. Well, if it's going to be are we talking Amazing, or are we talking Sam Raimi?
We're talking Amazing, because I have to rewatch the Sam Raimi ones. And to be fair, I'm not that big a fan of the Sam Raimi films.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I was gonna say I actually like the Sam Raimi ones.
I like things about them. I love the third one. I love the third one.
Of course you do.
The third one is actually fun. I'm not saying it's a good movie. It's fun. And you know what? Douchey dancing Tobey Maguire
is what you like about it?
That is the only time I believe Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire is a terrible Spider-Man. He's not terrible as Peter Parker in the first movie, but in the following but anyway, we'll get into it. No, we'll get into it later.
I have to ask this right now.
Oh, God.
When that movie did come out, did you have enough hair where you tried to do the emo look and dance in the mirror for yourself so you could do the same little Peter Parker dance?
First of all, I've never been emo. Secondly, I still dance like that. In the mirror.
You're about the hair, though.
In the mirror behind me. Damn. Alright, so that'll do it. Thank you, Travis. Check out artoftravishemel.com, Travis_HYMEL on Instagram and Twitter.
Yep, and I also have my YouTube channel. I actually have a video dropping today, Friday, for a little instructional, or actually, why consider using Clip Studio Paint. So that's going to be dropping later this afternoon.
You can find me Buck_Lightning on Instagram. So, alrighty then.
See you next time.